are fundamentally afraid of their own truth. And I think the same is true for companies.
Hi, I'm Steph Norris. I'm the president of Norbella. We are the top media agency in Boston, and we have you here today to get to know us a little bit better through the journey of questions. I've always been intrigued by great conversation and asking people questions. I've always asked many questions of myself. I love the way that people think, and I love to get to know people through questions. Our first interviewee is Chris Colbert. I'm so excited. He is a former partner of mine. I've known Chris for years, and he is wildly entertaining, unbelievably smart, and just a very deep thinker. And I really look forward to you hearing what he has to say. Talk about your career and your life with risk and taking risk, and where you've had successes and where you've had some failures. Like the biggest risks you've ever taken in your life that either worked out for you or didn't work out for you. And maybe it didn't even feel like a big risk at the time you're taking it, but when you look back on it, you know that it was.
I think the biggest risk I took was at the age of 37. I woke up after a party that my now ex-wife and I had thrown and said to myself, I don't want to do this anymore. Not my ex-wife and I, be me anymore.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I was not okay with me. Mm-hmm. I realized I was fucked up. I was broken. Nobody knew it. Everybody thought I was this highly accomplished CEO of this whatever. But inside I was a broken child. And the biggest risk I took was saying to myself, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
And then saying to the people around me, I'm not doing this anymore, which caused them to go, what? And fundamentally, over the course of the next 3 years, I walked away from everything that most people would define as success. You know, the lovely house in the lovely suburbs with the lovely car and the lovely company and the lovely notoriety or celebrity and the lovely fucking everything. And I literally ended up in a walk-up in Arlington with 2 Samsonite bags. But I literally ended up with nothing.
Yeah. Had to start all over.
I had to start all over, and it was the best thing ever happened. I mean, one of my theories is for people to really, there are only 2 motivators of behavior change, desperation and aspiration. I believe 99% of people need desperation to change. Problem with aspiration is it's a want-based thing. Desperation is a need-based thing. And the beauty of what happened to me back then is I became desperate. Like I was desperate to not be me anymore. And so I was then willing to take on massive risk. The problem for most people is they don't have enough desperation.
To motivate them.
To motivate. And that goes back to the business side of this too. Mm-hmm. Like you're doing okay. You can kind of see in a crystal ball, the future doesn't look so bright and shiny, but you're doing okay. You're still making payroll. You got 300 grand in the bank, whatever. So your ability to really take risk and get the company together going, we're not going this way anymore, we're going to go that way, takes huge balls.
Yeah.
And so most people just hold on. Back to the personal, most people hold on to their shitty life, their shitty circumstance, their shitty reality, because they don't really need the opposite of that enough. Right. And then, so one of the things I write about in my book is I wish upon people hitting what I call acceptable rock bottom. Like rock bottom is on the street with a needle in your arm. I don't wish them that. I wish them what I found, which was a level of just fundamental dissatisfaction that was sufficient to warrant me to change everything and risk everything, with that. But people hate risk, man. People hate risk. I believe the purpose, the meaning of life is to achieve intimacy. First with self. Knowing self, loving self, appreciating self, the good, the bad, the ugly, the self. The second part is intimacy with others. Certainly partners, families, friends, and people that you work with. To me, there's no dividing line. We're all just fucking humans trying to figure this shit out.
Yep.
And so if you buy that as the meaning of life, then your job as a leader is to create an environment that enables that supports that fuels that maybe even demands that. the other side. Well, I guess there's at least two other sides. Another side is 20 years from now when I'm like, you may be too, we're like shooting the shit, and you look back on Norbella and what you created. What are you gonna revel in? Yeah, we ended up with $7 million in the bank. We ended up with a bunch of clients that came and went. No, you're going to look back and go, we created an amazing experience for people. Mm-hmm. They grew, they developed, they loved coming to work every day. Mm-hmm. And you know what? They still get together.
Yeah.
There are Norbella reunions all over the world. I don't know. But that's a measure of success. It's other shit. These material definitions will mean nothing.
Right.
I see no divide between being a CEO of a business, a director of a lab, or being a parent, or even being a good friend to somebody else. It's all the same shit. I believe that there are only two tribes of people in the world. I think there are seekers and non-seekers. Mm-hmm. And the question is, seekers are those seeking intimacy with self, seeking intimacy with others, seeking understanding of what this all really means, seeking ways to connect, right? In big ways that have lifelong consequence. So as you hire, the thing that I seek more than anything in my hiring is seekers.
Yeah.
I'm looking for curiosity. I'm looking for emotional capacity. But if somebody shows up at my door who is clearly a non-seeker, mm-hmm. I don't care if they're fucking brilliant. I don't care what.
You think that you can identify them just through an interview?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's great.
I mean, part of my crazy method is I am who I am. Mm-hmm. And I'm a polarizing person. Mm-hmm. And if I am who I am with somebody and they get moved closer to me, figuratively or literally, then that's probable that they're a seeker. If they
freak out by you,
if they start doing this. Another thing I believe that if you create an organization of seekers, if you create an organization based on love, if you build transparency, if you establish a culture of transparency
and vulnerability
in that, and truth-telling in that, you will create trust. Right? Trust mm-hmm. comes out of truth, and with trust you will create higher forms of productivity and innovation. Mm-hmm. Because people will only innovate. People will only open their kimono in a room of people they trust. They will only put stupid ideas on the table if they
feel like that person's willing to do the same.
Yeah, and they don't fear judgment,
right.
know? And so sort of coming around to the question, I think, interviewing for people that are of our cloth. That doesn't mean they all look alike. Right. Doesn't mean they all come from the same backgrounds, or whatever. But they share the cloth of being seekers, of being truth tellers. Somebody asked me in my office why I am so vulnerable. Why I'm so vulnerable. I know everybody in my office knows that I admitted my son to an eating disorder
mm-hmm.
clinic yesterday.
It was the first thing you said when you sat down.
Everybody knows, mm-hmm. and my answer was because I've chosen to live a 100% transparent life, mm-hmm. And secondly, I'm trying to be an example for everybody else.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I love my conversations with you, because I feel like they're honest and we talk so much about every little freaking thing we have going on in our lives. I know.
Wait till the tequila.
Oh, tequila.